Welcome to the Daily Influence, where our mission is to deliver a daily dose of positive influence that can uplift you personally or be shared within your sphere of influence. While not every episode may directly apply to your unique circumstances, we strive to provide insights and inspiration relevant to most people's daily, weekly, and monthly lives. Whether you are tuning in during the morning, noon, or night, the Daily Influence is here for you. Listen, share, and embrace the power of influence in your life. Hey everybody, Brian Smith here with the I and Team series, and we're going to be wrapping up this section today. And we've been talking for the last week or so about the pitfalls of our influence and leadership. And today's episode is being released while Rene and I are embarking on a trip. And we're taking off from Singapore today and going to visit Vietnam, Thailand, Hong Kong, get to go to Disney. And I'm reflecting on this past couple of weeks has been, kind of a struggle to get through pitfalls and talk about things that can cause negativity. I don't really like to have negativity, and for me, even talking about negativity can bring me down, which is a pitfall for me. And pitfalls can be very subjective to each of us in our areas of influence. And as somebody who tries to write about and talk about and be positive, these last ones have been very difficult. One of the reasons it's been difficult and it's been a pitfall, actually, it's been an advantage, is it's like looking in the mirror and thinking about the things that are pitfalls for me. When I sit here and look at the screen, and those of you that can see the screen who are watching or listening to us on YouTube can see behind me some of the positive things that are in my life: art, my granddaughter, figurines my granddaughter has given me, our books, things from our travel. And it reminds me that I should never assume, like we talked about in the first episode, that everything that I can do can be positive. An assumption is a pitfall because it sets us up for failure because we don't take into account full context, and context matters. That especially matters when we delegate. Delegation can be a pitfall. Make sure that we don't assume that people understand what we're delegating and that they don't assume what our expectations are when we do delegate. If we make assumptions and delegate together, it creates an even bigger potential risk for us for disappointment and more challenges. And as we move through life, put things into perspective so that we don't sweat the small stuff. One of the things, the sayings that we have is stepping over dollars to pick up dimes. You know, people who are focused on the small things and they miss the big picture sometimes. That's a pitfall. And they get mired down in too many details. And because they're mired down in the details and they're sweating the small stuff, they get in the way, they create more disruption. And it's when we do that we can take our influence for granted. The fact that maybe you're the leader or the boss, or not the leader or the boss, and you take for granted either that you can interrupt people and it's okay, or that because you're not the boss, nobody's going to listen to you. Speak up. Don't take your influence for granted. Make sure that you have a voice. Ensure that your influence matters by speaking up. And if people take their influence for granted, you can speak up about that too. And when we overreact, that's a huge pitfall. And by the way, when we are expressing the fact that our influence matters, you might have people overreact, both positively and negatively. We talked about how Rene, my wife, can be really bubbly and really positive, and how people can perceive that as fake and that it's not real. and that it has gotten in the way of having real relationships with people who probably would have been a positive benefit either to us in our lives or for us in theirs. But because of their perception of overreaction, they've created this wedge or this chasm where there is no relationship. And that goes for negative overreaction also. We talked about how detrimental that can be, how we can let our emotions overtake us and create huge problems where those problems don't need to be. And when we do these things in our life, positive and negative, we create this world influence. We talked about karma. We talked about the feedback of the world, how I always get great parking spots when Rene is with me, or how I can look at when I'm having challenges in my life and I'm focused on just the negative aspects of those challenges, I start to have more negative issues happening. But when I change my mindset and I change my approach to a more positive one, there might be more positive things happening. And we can do that. And yes, we're putting out more positive vibes. And if you don't believe in karma or those types of things, that's okay. But you might still recognize when these things happen, you might call it chance. Is synchronicity just chance? Or is it a pattern of positivity and negativity that we bring on ourselves through our actions? And that world influence in our world, in an area of influence, are we helping for those to happen? And then happiness. How happiness is a pitfall. We talked about how our happiness might not make other people happy. But we don't think that way as humans. We don't think very often about how maybe my happiness might have a negative influence on somebody else. From something as simple as listening to loud music in my car to what I do for a living and how I do it. Coming to work on a Saturday might make me happy because it gets me ahead of a work schedule or ahead of a product or a problem that I'm facing. Yet it creates a rift or a negative thing for my family or for my wife or for my friends. I've actually lost friends because I didn't make enough time for them. I was happy I was working. They weren't happy with our friendship. I lost it. So happiness can be a pitfall. Make sure that you understand your happiness, understand what makes you happy and how that happiness needs to be balanced in your different areas of influence: home, work, friends, and everything in between. Don't let the pitfalls in your life or the pitfall challenges that you face define you. Use them as opportunities to understand the influence you have, how your influence might be contributing to your pitfalls, and how you can use your influence to get yourself and those in your area of influence around, over, to avoid those pitfalls, or maybe even eliminate certain pitfalls in your life that you might dig over and over and over again. We're moving into a new topic in front of us about change. Change should be improvement. And as we move into that, we'll be mindful of the pitfalls that improvement or change can create, just like happiness. And I look forward to sharing with you in the future about how all of this comes together for individual positive influence for you and for everybody within your area of influence. I hope you have a great weekend. I look forward to speaking to you again in the future. Bye.